Welcome to the Bettendorf Public Library's Take-Home Workshop. Today, we're making scrunchies. Scrunchies are great because they don't take a lot of fabric, so if you have fabric scraps at home, you can make them out of all sorts of things. You can make them to match a particular outfit if you want. You can make them larger or smaller if you have thicker or thinner hair. So it's a really good skill to know. We did learn this from the library's Creative Bug subscription. So Creative Bug is a collection of thousands of how-to video tutorials for all sorts of arts and crafts. It's a wonderful resource that you have access to with your Bettendorf Public Library card through our website. So take a look at that if you feel inspired. In our kit, you're going to find fabric. Now today I'm working with black fabric, and but you will have probably a different color. You might have black, but there's an assortment of colors in the kits. And then you'll find some thread. I'm using a contrasting thread today to make it easy to see on camera what the stitches would be. The thread you have will be more closely matched to the color of your fabric. You have a 9-inch piece of elastic. There is a needle inside this little piece of straw where you'll just snip off the end to slide that out, and a safety pin. All we're asking you to provide is a pair of scissors, and then optionally, if you so choose, you can also supply pins or some way to hold edges together as you sew, but it's certainly not necessary. So let's get started. I've threaded my needle. I cut off a piece of thread that was a couple feet long maybe. I don't want to use I don't like using really long pieces of thread. It just gets tangled. I would rather do shorter pieces and have to start and stop more often. So I've threaded my needle and I've tied a knot at one end. Now my piece of fabric, which we've already cut to size for you, this is 3 inches wide, or 3.5 inches wide, sorry, 3.5 inches wide by 22 inches long. And we're just gonna make a tube. So I'm just going to fold it in half and make my edges match up. Now again, if you want to pin it or clip it so that it stays like this, you certainly can. I'm just going to hold it like this, and we're just going to do a running stitch. So starting at the end, I'm going to come up, and then I want to make sure my ends are really secure, so I'm actually going to wrap it around and come up in the same place again. Just like that. And then it's just a running stitch. So it's down and up and down and up. The whole 22-inch length of our fabric. Now this running stitch, you want it to be relatively close to the end. I'm going maybe about 1/4 inch. If it's not perfectly straight, or perfectly uniform, that's okay. Scrunchies are very forgiving because they in fact do scrunch. But I'm just going to continue that the whole way down. So it'll look like that all the way down. Now, I want to be very careful not to pull this tight like that. I want it to lay flat. It will eventually do that, but this is what this running stitch is for. It allows that fabric to get pulled up, so for the scrunch. So I'm going to continue doing this. I did my running stitch all the way down, and you can see it's not perfectly straight, but it's actually not bad for not having measured it. I'm down to the end, and I'm going to do the same thing I did at the start. I come down to the end, I'm going to wrap around and bring it back up again. And that just gives a little extra reinforcement to that edge of that seam. And then I'm going to knot that off. And trim my thread. So basically what I have here is a long tube, but I'm going to turn this inside out, and here's how we're going to do that. We're going to take our safety pin, We are going to run it through one side of our scrunchie. We're not going to do them both. It's a little trickier that way. We're going to do, it's possible, but it's trickier. We're going to run it through one side, close it back up, and then we're going to thread that down through the tube. So we have it, and we're just going to run it down the tube. And the safety pin in there gives us something to grab to and hold on to and to pull through. This is also a really good way to run a drawstring. Like if the drawstring on your hoodie or your sweatpants ever comes out, using a safety pin to run that through makes that a lot easier. Okay, we get to the end. We're just going to pull straight on through, just like that. And we have this long tube in our seam. Now you can't see our stitching at all. If you want, you can press this flat. I prefer not to because I don't want those creases to be in my final scrunchie. I want that to be smooth. So we have our tube. Now we're going to put our elastic in. So you see where the scrunch comes in. Our elastic is less than half of the length of our tube. It's 9 inches of elastic. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our safety pin, run it through the end of our elastic, and then we're going to run it through our tube again. Now this one, we just want to be careful that we don't pull it all the way through. So I'm going to scrunch this up, but I'm keeping an eye on my tail here so that it doesn't get pulled into the tube. Then I'm going to take the elastic off of there, and I'm going to take these two ends of the elastic and I'm just going to knot them together. And I'm just putting them together like this and making a knot. Scrunch that down kind of towards the end. And then I'm going to trim off these extras a little bit. Now, if you wanted to sew that instead, you could, but knotting it works as well. So now I have my elastic inside my tube. Now I just need to finish this off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end, I'm going to tuck it into the other end. And make sure it's in there, I would say an inch or so. You want it to be in there far enough. If you want your seams to line up, you can do that. It's not necessary. And then I'm going to take the outer end of this tube and I'm going to fold it under a little bit because I don't want to see this raw edge. This would eventually fray. And I'm going to fold that under. Just like that. And then we're going to stitch that again. And this time we're going to take up a little bit of the inner tube, then a little bit of the outer tube, and just go back and forth in kind of a zigzaggy sort of a stitch. I rethreaded my needle just like I did before, put a little knot at the end, and now I'll show you how to do this. So this is the inside part of the tube, this is the outside. I'm just going to go in here, and I'm actually going to reach in underneath here a little bit and pick up just a little section of that inside tube, pull my thread through, and then I'm going to do the same with the outer. Just pick up a little bit. And we're going to do that all the way around, just back and forth. Now, you can see this because I'm using the white thread on black, but with a coordinating thread, these get kind of pulled into a seam and you won't really be able to see these stitches at all. So little stitches back and forth all the way around. One thing you want to be careful not to do is go beyond this one layer of fabric. And it's not so much an issue when you're on the outer tube, but if you're on the inner tube, you want to make sure you don't go down far enough that your needle goes through and you pick up both more than just one layer. So tiny little delicate stitches are the name of the game here. When you get back to where you started stitching, you're just going to knot off. I'm going to do a double knot on that one. I really want to make sure that stays secure. We're going to go in and snip it right up close to the knot, as close as we can get. And there is your scrunchie. So as always, we would love to see what you've made. Show it to us on social media. And we want to thank the Bettendorf Public Library Foundation for sponsoring this take-home workshop.